Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is Joshua Kahn with your health update. The Salem's Lot Board of Health would like to announce the first annual Hubie Marston Memorial Blood Drive. This event will take place Saturday at the historic Marston House at sundown, although the press release is quite hard to read through the dark stains. Looks like someone got into the complimentary jelly donuts early. You're listening to Derry Public Radio.
This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham. Today we are wrapping up part 2 of Jerusalem's Lot. We promise we'll actually finish Jerusalem's Lot.
Don't make that promise.
And today we have Ben leading the discussion, so take it away, Ben.
Yeah, this book picks up in part 2. We pick up immediately after the events at the end of part 1. Ben, asleep at Ava's boarding house, wakes up to a phone call. And it's a call from Matt. It's 4 a.m. and he says, "Bring a crucifix."
Great phone call to get in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
The kickoff of part 2 is so awesome. I love that, you know, he gets this cryptic call and he's just like, all right, because it's Ben, and that's what he does. Like, all right, you want me to come over and bring a cross? I'll find something. And he goes. And I love that when he walks in, he just sees that on Matt's table, there's a coffee, a Bible, and a gun. And I was like, hell yeah, that's Christmas. Right?
3 things that you definitely want to see when someone invites you over to the house at like 3 a.m.
Right?
Yeah. And his first words basically are, "There's a dead man upstairs." And Ben's like, huh.
Interesting.
He takes all of this extremely
well. I mean, if somebody invites me over at that time and has all those things and tell me a dead body, I think my first question is, am I next?
Yeah.
That is the first thing I'd be wondering.
But he brings up that Matt is such a with it and together person that he never questions anything Matt said. Well, at first he's like, I don't know. We'll have to see for myself. But he never is like...
He's not. And it's because I kind of mentioned last episode that these characters that we're seeing sort of assemble, we know they're going to be this team, or we think they're going to be this team. Mm-hmm. They all have something that the other townspeople don't. And it kind of shows itself when Ben goes upstairs and he's walking down the hall towards the closed door, and he's thinking about walking down the hall in another house towards another closed door when he sees Hubie Marston. So I think that experience for him when he was a child has really shaped the way he's going to process all this information.
Mm-hmm. Because he is at heart a believer.
Yeah, well, and they're open-minded intellectuals. Like, and I think that's my favorite part of this part of the scene is that, you know, after he checks and he sees, oh, okay, Mike's dead body's in there, even though it looks like it might not be dead. And they discuss literally every option. Like, no matter how crazy it is, let's put it on the table and make a plan from there. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, and he doesn't believe it's vampires, but he doesn't believe that he's crazy.
Right.
Well, yeah, he doesn't believe at first, but at a certain point, after they view the body and he's just like Danny Glick's body looks completely healthy, but is not breathing, has no pulse. And they talk over every possibility. Ben essentially says, like Matt asked him, do you believe me? And Ben goes, well, I guess I have to. Now, in the book, in his character, that makes complete sense. But I could not help thinking of myself in this situation in real life and going, yeah, you kind of, what? No, you don't have to believe him.
I mean, yeah.
That's insane. But that just proves that I would be a vampire.
right there with me. We've only got Josh left.
Yeah, Josh, you're our last hope.
Oh, geez.
I have an important question about when the sheriff arrives and Dr. Cody to do the examination. He turns the now corpse over and he pulls down his pants and he's taking his temperature rectally. Do you think they were lovers?
How many times do I have to say this?
Remember.
No, they didn't describe his package.
Did you guys?
That's the only way you know if they were lovers.
When did this
Okay,
happen?
It's when he's doing the examination.
The word queer and even a more derogatory term for people who just like other people of the same sex is all over this book.
I guess I blocked it out. Well, I mean,
for
there are
you.
a lot of the townspeople who have pretty reductive beliefs.
Yeah.
Anytime you're talking about two men together, whatever townsperson it is, I bet they're a bunch of... It's like, okay, I'm tired of that.
Well, it's that small-minded small town.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's also one of the indicators of why everyone is in each other's business, but they're also so distant. They don't know the truth about anybody's life.
Yeah.
It just illustrates that everyone makes active assumptions about everyone else. Mm-hmm. So everyone thinks they know everything, but they don't know shit about other people.
Except for Mabel. See, I just have to like double down on Mabel. It's been said, who
I
cares?
have no idea who that is. Who the hell is Mabel?
That's classic Mabel right there.
Yeah,
No
right.
idea. So yeah, Perkins comes over, and I honestly, I love this bit because, like I said in the last episode, we didn't see much of him. I just love Perkins. I don't know what it is about him. He's just such a small town, like, he's plays everything so slow and cool. And especially in this scene, he walks up to men and he's like, so, how's the story coming? You gonna be in town for a while? What are your plans? And it is just small talk, but it is small town, don't leave town.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a cool little character.
It's funny because I hate this character.
Really?
I do.
Well, at the end of the book, he becomes a symbol for something pretty hateful.
I felt vindicated when he turned out to be awful.
Really?
Because the entire book, I was just like, at first, I liked him a little bit because he talks about how he got his star from a magazine, like his little sheriff star. I was like, that's fucking funny.
Oh, no, that was
Well, that's
Nolly.
Nolly.
Oh, no, that's Nolly.
Yeah,
It's Nolly who
Nolly's
got
an
it.
idiot.
Nolly's an idiot.
I think Buster from the Misery movie has really raised the bar for
Yes.
small town sheriffs.
Yes. If this
He's no Buster.
If he'd been more Buster.
I thought he reminded me a lot of Buster. So anyway, they say essentially, don't leave town. This is really suspicious. But after Matt and Ben are talking, and Matt says, I feel weird. You know that word? The way the kids use it? But anyway, Ben drives back to Ava's, and he's getting ready to go to bed. And surprise Floyd attack!
He does go to bed.
Because he's on his way to the
that's
car the
Yeah,
next
he
morning.
wakes up and Floyd is sitting in his car.
Dressed all crazy.
Yeah, he's dressed
fully
like...
clothed.
You guys, it seems like he doesn't want the sun to touch it.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's like thick gloves on. Lyme disease. Weird. It's going around. And the book picks up. Next chapter, Susan at home, and she's confronted by her mom.
That's a rough scene.
Yeah. What did you guys think? Because this scene made me like Susan.
It did
even
me
more.
too. Her character sort of vindicated itself in this scene. She grew up, which 24-year-old, arguably she could have grown up a little sooner, but this scene really brought that out. She goes home and she's, by this point, her mom, I think, is getting the idea that Susan has fallen for Ben, and that's just done. But she's still holding on to Floyd, and Floyd had come to visit and poured his heart out to Susan's mom. And so Susan's trying to give her this talk like, you don't know what you want. I've seen these Ben Mears types before. She knows that he's just going to break her heart and leave town.
But she's mean about it.
She's
so
super
mean.
mean.
She fucking uses Ben's wife against him.
Yeah.
She tells her that was it the National Enquirer or something similar?
Yeah.
Ran a story that Ben Mears, famed author, was drunk on his motorcycle, got into a car accident and killed his wife.
Which we know that is not true.
Yeah.
But it plants a seed of doubt in
Right.
Susan nonetheless. Can we just touch real quick? Susan has this image of what her mother envisions for her. And she sees her and her mom sitting together. You know, they're both old. They're both like connected by this yarn, and it's frayed because of all the tugging back and forth. I don't know why, but that scene really, really struck me. And I guess I have a good relationship with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really kind of bothered me.
Yeah. Bet it didn't strike you as hard as Susan struck her mom.
Boom!
Yeah, she got slapped.
Slapped the taste right out of her mouth.
But as she's like, Susan, Mom, I'm out of here. I'm moving out. I'm not a kid anymore. And just as she's about to leave, she gets a phone call. Ben is in the hospital because Floyd knocked his fucking teeth in.
Yeah.
And Susan gets the final word of, oh yeah, you like Floyd so much? Well,
That nice boy Floyd Tibbetts just put Ben in the hospital or something to that
Yeah.
effect.
and we cut to the hospital.
This is not where I expected the story to go. I was so thrown by Ben being taken out by what appeared at the time an act of vengeance.
Yeah, jilted lover.
Not a vampire beating the shit out of someone in broad daylight.
Well, I wonder if that was a promise that Floyd received. Like if Barlow approached him at night and said, "Oh, Susan, that Ben guy, well, you'll get it."
If you want revenge, here's how you're gonna get it. So Ben kind of like fills Susan in on everything they've been discussing, and he says that Susan should go see Matt and that she should make sure that going forward all of her windows are locked. Because when they were checking out Matt's house, they noticed that the window, which had been locked, the screen was in the front yard. Mm-hmm. And so like that was another piece of further evidence that something had come inside from outside.
Andy tells her to remove "can't" from her vocabulary.
Yeah, that was
He's such a writer.
But it was a good conversation to go with that. What Matt and Ben were doing themselves. Of if you eliminate all of the possible options, all that's left is the impossible. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of his way of having that same conversation with her.
You cannot have cynicism if we are going to move forward.
You can't.
You can't. Yeah, that goes along with this theme that runs through the book. In fact, she even says, Susan she leaves Ben and she goes to visit Matt on Ben's request. And Ben says, have Matt tell you everything. And Matt asks Susan if she's met this straker. And did you guys think anything weird about what her response is?
I thought it was familiar.
Definitely familiar.
It's because it's a mixture of this guy is charming and I'm not quite sure why, and he's alluring, and there's this like instant of attraction, but at the same time you get the sense of something really dark underneath and that he could be very cruel.
And she sensed contempt and cynicism. Anyway. She also says, quote, I was attracted to him in a mildly sexual way, I guess. And of course, there's something attractive about a man who is unabashedly bald. What? Is that true?
CM?
Okay. Look behind
Sorry.
you.
There's a lot of Jean-Luc Picard around our Derry Public Radio
Stephen
studio.
King is in our station. It's equal Jean-Luc Picard.
Well, there's your proof that Stephen King can sexualize a man. But only only evil men and their heads, I guess. I don't know what point I'm making. You
hurt CM physically by that statement.
Yeah.
No, but I liked her response though, because it was so vulnerable and honest. And that would be really hard to tell this teacher, this, someone she learned from and looked up to, presumably, the weird sexual ways that this stranger made you feel. Because, that wouldn't come out naturally. I wouldn't just tell somebody that. That kind of shows that she, well, presumably, but maybe not, is kind of assembling as part of this team with them.
That's fair.
And so she's, spoilers, not so much a part of the team, but she is instrumental to the team in what happens later.
They are assembling a quartet.
Yeah, they are
right?
a quartet for sure.
Of course.
Okay. I know we have some listeners that have never read The Dark Tower, and they're like, we have no idea what you guys are talking about half the time. Anyway, they are talking at Matt's, and he tells her everything, and she's like, "No, that's silly." Until there's a noise upstairs.
Oh, sorry. Before we investigate the noise upstairs, one of the things in this book that drove me insane is how many pages we spend on they brought this person in and they told them everything.
Yep.
And thank God that we don't have to go through the conversation every time. But I feel like sometimes it's like a 2-page description of like, we sat down, I pulled my Bible and my gun out, told her everything.
Yeah,
like
that happens.
There's so much catching everyone else up on everything that's happening.
Every time a new character joins the group, they're like, okay, come on, you've got a lot to hear.
They're like, here's the flyer. Just read it. It's both sides, front and back. It'll get you up to speed.
So there's a noise upstairs, and Susan immediately is terrified. And badass Matt Burke, gathers up his willpower and goes upstairs to investigate. And what does he find?
He finds the door slightly ajar, which is one of my favorite lines now, that all fears...
The basis of all human fears, he thought. A closed door slightly ajar.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Stephen King can write some shit about doors. Seriously, I love it.
There are
other
a few
door stuff to
lines
talk
that
about in this book.
I just wrote, fuck, Stephen King can write.
Yeah.
He's just so good.
So he goes into the bedroom, and Mike is laying there where he was in the position he found him in last time. And he's like, there's no way. Like, how this body wasn't here. He goes over and he checks it, and Mike opens his eyes.
And has a giant, his shirt is off, and he has a giant Y-shaped scar from his autopsy.
Oh, so awesome.
And Matt, with his crucifix, drives him out. He uses his belief to drive out, and he says, I revoke your invitation. And Mike falls out the window and says, I will see you sleep like the dead, teacher. And then Matt has a heart attack.
And Susan doesn't see any of this. That's the infuriating part, because she stayed downstairs. Yeah. She hears it, but she can't corroborate what happened to him.
Yeah.
But when she goes up and gets the blanket, gets everything for him, and she goes back and she finds Mike's class ring.
And she believes everything.
Like, that was such a great way to, because that's exactly how it played out in my head, is like, oh my God, she missed all of this. Like, she missed the defining stuff, and then just that one piece left behind. And I was like, you got me.
I don't want to get too far ahead, but I don't know. I don't feel like she quite believes everything. She's still, based on her later actions, like, yes, she does, but she also has this seed of doubt.
Yeah,
because she goes about things like she's got to prove something, and if she truly believes, she would not have done what she ends up doing.
That's a good point. Because she kind of she goes about things
the real dumb way.
The real dumb
Actually,
way.
Arguably, they all do, which I hope we get into. It's just the things working against them are so like almost supernatural and
almost.
Well, I mean their stupidity and how they go about things sometimes.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So our next chapter is another chapter about the town.
Oh God, so excited.
Josh.
So the big point of this chapter, it starts off with like basically making the point that these towns have secrets, and nobody, kind of the point I made earlier of like everybody thinks they know everything. The town has secrets, but nobody knows the lengths to which those secrets go, or the depths of those secrets. And we get a couple of those that don't really ever come back.
Yeah.
Like about murders, but like the one that I thought was interesting is that Birdie begged Hubie to shoot her, but we never get an explanation
can
of
we
like
get a little more?
Yeah,
more
like
about
I want to know what the fuck led to that now. But like that was such an interesting thing of like we heard the story, we know everybody knows the story, but we get a glimpse of like nobody knows the lengths of the story because this is something that's left out. And we also get kind of an update of the body count of the other new vampires who they have killed. And we find out that Danny Glick ate the baby. He didn't eat the
turned-
baby whole.
Yeah.
He turned the baby.
He turned
No.
a baby into a
He
vampire.
ate the abused baby. And then comes the scene where Sandy, the mother, straight up Weekend at Bernie's her baby. Oh God, it was for
real.
characters. That character I hate, and I was just like, so I felt so bad for that breakdown she has. Like, classic King, take a character that I fucking hate and then make me sympathize with them for.
It's evidence that there are larger things at work. I mean, okay, for this book, it's a vampire, but for society, it's, she's this stressed out, terrible mother who abuses her child because she had a baby when she was still a child and is still a child. And she lives, probably paycheck to paycheck. Her husband is not supportive. He gets off work and then goes to the bar and drinks and then comes home and berates her for being fat and for not, all she has to do is make sure the kid's okay and she gets to stay home all day, not acknowledging that parenting is a job too. So
Right.
I think that's King bringing back that humanity for her.
Yeah. In the foreword, I didn't touch on this. There was another part where King says that the whole book is written as, I think he says something along the lines of a metaphor for the state of America at the time, which was definitely not familiar today. The rich getting richer and the poor getting welfare if they're lucky. The rich people in this story are like Barlow and Straker, and they're feeding on this poor, rundown, essentially already dead town, small town America. So we also get other sicknesses and deaths. Danny Glick's mother is sick.
Oh, she got Lyme disease?
She got Lyme disease real bad.
Is Danny turning his mother into a vampire
He's
via
breastfeeding.
breastfeeding?
Yeah, and it's upsetting.
That is-
Let's move on.
He's
Okay.
Game of Thronesing her.
I hate it so much. Not as much as I hate a quick sidebar to Ben and Susan in the hospital, where they have this a little tete-a-tete. How would I explain? Or they want to bang in the hospital.
Yeah.
And Susan says, "How would I explain it to those little candy stripers?" And Ben says, "Tell them you're giving me the bedpan." Gross times a million.
Yeah.
I
Super
hate that.
gross.
Anyway, that's when they have their the stop saying can't.
And they swap info because they're back together.
yes.
Can we also mention, too, that throughout these conversations, different characters have mentioned to other characters, go see Father Callahan. And for one reason or another, we've had that so many times, but nobody has yet made it to Father Callahan. And who knows what might have happened had they made it sooner.
True.
I see. I don't know that it would have changed much because it's not to the point where when they finally get to Callahan that they have so much backing them up.
But they've had more time to process it than he has.
That's true. All right. Yeah. Good point.
We get some other characters. Nolly and Parkins find Floyd dead in the jail cell where they left him. Two drunk dummies visit the dump and can't find Dud. This was a part because there's this extended part about these just two drunk guys that we've never met. And there's a line where they say that they had developed their own protective coloration. They explain these characters that they're just poor, good old boys that live in the lot. And that, if you saw them drive down the street, you wouldn't even notice them.
Right.
What's funny is I didn't even notice them in the book.
Well, exactly. That was my note.
The scene is so intense with Bonnie Sawyer and Corey Bryant. Bonnie is the one that she's having the affair with.
Oh, God, yeah.
This is where we get to why that setup earlier is important.
Yeah.
Because Corey comes over and she's seducing him, and then her husband Reggie is just suddenly there with a shotgun, and Corey straight up pees himself. And this is probably my favorite of the out of context just town stories, because he takes pulls Corey into the room, makes him put the entire shotgun barrel in his mouth, and then click,
dry
and
fires.
he dry fires it, and Corey shits his pants.
But he's so calm.
He
and
is.
he's smiling the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
And then-
so threatening.
My favorite thing about it is like after all this build up, and he makes him shit his pants, and he's like, all right, now what you're going to do is you're going to get up. You're going to walk to the bus station. You're going to buy the first ticket to Boston. From Boston, you can get anywhere. But here's the thing. You're going to go straight there. You're not going to change. Because if you change clothes, you'll start feeling like a person again. And I don't want that. And I was like, damn, dude.
Yeah, and I
That
love...
is stone cold awesome. But then he turns out to be a real piece of shit.
Yeah. And then Corey runs into Barlow.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say, I loved the as this happened, I was like, I love the irony that this kid is like, oh, my life's ruined.
He's gonna
But the
get away.
irony that he's going to get out of town
No.
and this guy, Reggie, is saving him from a much worse fate. Well, then Barlow shows up, and he's described as middle-aged this time.
Yeah.
The first time we saw him, when he met Dud, he was an older man, and now he's this very charismatic middle-aged man with, I imagined, a little pencil mustache.
See, that buying trip must have rejuvenated him.
Yes, that's what it was.
There's one thing I wanted to go back. Ben temporarily visited Matt, and Ben describes the hospital as the citadel of unbelief, where nightmares are dispatched with Lysol and scalpels and chemotherapy rather than steaks and Bibles and Wild Mountain Thyme. And it's just another dig at anything scientific, anything that is black and white about the world. The book is them slowly shedding typical, common knowledge and getting to this religious, pure feeling of vampires. Vampires are here.
Yeah, they're abandoning science for instinct.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is the point where now Susan fills everybody in because both Ben and Matt have still been in the hospital. She tells them about all the mysterious deaths. The bodies of Floyd and the baby have gone missing from the morgue. So all these mysterious deaths are happening.
And then Mark Petrie wakes up.
That's spooky. Yeah, Mark wakes up, and guess who's at his window? It's Danny. And he wants to see that monster collection that he came to see. Oh, no, wait. He wants to turn Mark into a vampire.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
that's
that's
what it
right.
was.
I thought
I get those things confused.
the part of this that I thought was really cool. So this happens, and Mark grabs one of the props from his monster set, and it's a cross. And he, of course, Mark is this awesome kid because Stephen King writes awesome kids. He banishes him. Like, he relies on his instinct. It's dead on. And
Pure belief.
Yeah, he lets him come in, and then he banishes him out.
Yes, that he doesn't even go away. He's like, I think he says, come in then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he
just
shoves it in his face.
Swipes at him with a cross.
Yep. And so the noise of that wakes up his dad. So Mark jumps back into bed and kind of acts like he's asleep, and his dad comes in and he's asking him, hey, I heard a noise. Did you have a nightmare? Oh, I don't know, maybe. He's looking around and he has a feeling of dread and he doesn't understand why, but he can't shake it. And so he keeps asking him well, do you need a drink of water? Are you sure you're okay? And I just thought that was cool. It's like he was treating him like he was a child, like a little child again.
Yeah.
Yep. And after his dad leaves, Mark lays down and falls asleep.
Yeah.
I thought this was really mean, a juxtaposition between Mark and Matt, because it's like, yeah, this kid, he just falls asleep, and this old guy who can't do anything,
Well,
he has a heart attack.
It is because of this quote. The same lonely battle must be fought night after night, and the only cure is the eventual ossification of the imaginary faculties, and this is called adulthood. This whole book is the reason Mark is so, he immediately believes, is because he has that childlike belief, which is really what connects Ben to this, is he has that childlike belief because he remembers his experience in the Marston house. And that's why Matt had a fucking heart attack, is because he is an intelligent, educated man. And as much as he believes when he sees it, his body is old and it's a shock to him. And Matt, being a kid, just shrugs it off. It reminded me of the Losers Club. Mark would rule the fucking Losers Club.
So what about Susan? who is still very close to being a child herself.
Well, she's true. She's
no, you know what I
in
mean,
between.
Though? Because she is on that cusp, but yet what she does betrays that belief.
Which fits her actions because she half believes and half doesn't.
Yeah. Now, here's where shit start getting crazy. Because we've got everybody's back together. This is when they start bringing Dr. Cody in on all this. And they fill Cody in on everything.
I like him too.
That's what we do.
He's a cool character.
Yeah, I like Dr. Cody. And they originally come up with the plan of we're going to get Danny's body exhumed to prove that the casket is empty. You know, we're going to find out some way to do it. And they get Cody on board surprisingly quickly. Where he's just like, yeah, I guess we can do that. And so they go to the Glick's house only to find out that Marge has died and that Tony has been taken to the hospital seriously ill. This is the first time that they've made this like a solid plan, and it has been thrown off. Like every time they plan on doing something, they usually have that follow through. This is like they go to pull the trigger on this, and then the entire plan unravels because it's not what they were expecting to happen.
And they even say that they have this feeling of things getting out of control because they have this plan, and then they're like, we can't talk to them now. Well, we need to go see Callahan still. Oh, and we should check on the McDougalls because we know the baby is missing. Maybe the baby went for them. There's so much that they have piling up, and they know that they only have until sundown.
And sundown somehow every time just keeps coming quicker and quicker.
No, don't get me started. Tomorrow, sundown comes way sooner than it should. Meanwhile, as they are taking the reasonable steps, they're doing their due diligence, essentially. Susan makes her mistake.
She reverts back to their initial plan before they all kind of realized what was going on by herself. And she has enough sense, and this is what we mean by on the cusp, because she doesn't just, drive up to the front door, knock and say, hi, nice to meet you or see you again or whatever. She's sneaking up to the house through the woods, and she doesn't come prepared. So she comes across like a part of a fence, that's pointed at the end. So she grabs that like a stake, a makeshift stake.
Yeah, and under it is a rock, and she lifts it up, and there's a map to Zihuatanejo. That's crazy.
She goes to be with Andy.
Yeah.
So, Shawshank. For listeners who might not have heard that episode. And so as she's hiding in the woods, she runs into, or actually another character runs into her, Mark Petrie.
But we don't know that yet.
We think she's been captured
because
says that somebody
as
grabs
she's
her.
Crawling through the woods, a hand falls on her shoulder, and it smash cuts to Ben and Jimmy. And you're like, oh no!
Sorry, I was just trying not to be all dramatic. And Mark has a gun and a cross, and he's kind of like, lady, what did you bring? And he calls her out. Because she's like, this is bogus. He's like, why you have that shitty little steak with you then?
All right, so Ben and Cody, they go to that mortician's that's going to have the body, and they convince the mortician very easily. Again, everyone's very easily convinced to do stuff. To let them stay with the body, and can't explain
Mrs.
why.
Glick.
Of Mrs. Glick, yeah, because they've taken her body there, and they said that we just need to stay with the body.
Yeah,
is like, do you need to test it? No, we just need to stay with it.
Yeah, because when two men, one a complete stranger, show up to a mortuary and are like, "We're gonna sit with this corpse."
Oh, it means they're in a relationship. Sorry.
They wait until 7:02, almanac sunset, and exactly at 7:02, they both turn to each other and go, "Ah, shit, crosses."
Yeah. What the fuck?
See, that's what I mean. They make so many dumb decisions. It's like, is it the influence of Barlow? Is it the influence of the evil that's in the town that's like that's thwarting them? Or are they just stupid?
I definitely think a few instances, like there are a few things Barlow does later on that are specifically like he compares it to chess. It's chess, and he's just always a step ahead. This is just Ben and Jimmy being dumbasses. But real quick, as the sun is setting, they whip up a cross out of tongue depressors, and it starts to glow as Marjorie Glick sits up.
Yeah. Oh God. And like that, it happens so fast. She comes at them, and they're holding her back with crosses, and Jimmy lets his guard down for just a second, and she is on him, and she like pushes him down in the corner and starts biting him, and then Ben runs up and burns her with the cross, and she
sinks into her skin
Yeah.
without any resistance.
and then he backs her into the corner, and she just taunts him, saying that their circle is getting smaller, and then she vaporizes into the stone. Basically, she just vanishes, and like Jimmy's freaking out. They like pour like peroxide or whatever into his wound.
I actually get this. Jimmy cures his vampirism with disinfectant and a tetanus shot.
Yeah.
I know why.
Why?
Ooh.
Because medicine, according to Jimmy earlier in the chapter, is just white magic. He describes that I think he takes 2 ibuprofen or something. And he gives it to someone and says, "You know what that is? It's a painkiller. You know how it works?
Because
doctors don't. Doctors have, well, first of all, it's the 70s. So he's like, yeah, medicine, who knows? We just know it works. So I believe that this is a thing of Jimmy falls back on what he knows, on what he believes
Okay,
in.
so it's a faith thing, which
It's a faith
I
thing.
agree with and I really like, but why then do they go to later all of the townspeople with stakes and not with peroxide and aspirin?
Because they've
it's
already
too
been fully
late at that
turned.
point. I don't know. It's a stretch. So
This is where we jump back to
this
Mark
is
and
when
Susan.
we jump back in time. Mark finding Susan in the woods. We know the circle grows smaller, but we don't know who.
Right. They
Except we kind of do, because in the prologue we know Ben is with a kid and not a girl.
Although,
So
in defense of the prologue, I thought it was Father Callahan and Mark.
that's what I thought
whole
originally
time.
too.
Interesting.
I thought the writing a book was a misdirect because later it talks about Callahan writing a book.
That is true.
So I thought it was a misdirect.
Oh, I guess I just remembered from the first time I read it. But yeah, Mark finds Susan. He's like, "What are you doing, dummy? Let's go inside." And so they see Straker drive out.
And it's interesting because when Susan and Mark are paired up, she becomes a child again. She seems like his peer.
Yeah. Well, they also talk about it a couple other times that when Mark takes command, he still like there are times where he takes command of all the adults in the room too. Like
maybe he becomes her peer then,
Yeah.
more so than she becoming his.
They see Straker drive away and they break in through the front window. They're going through the house. Fun fact, they find a book on the table that's written in Latin and has profane writings in it. The short story that I mentioned last episode, Jerusalem's Lot, there's a book written in Latin called De Vermis Mysteries, the mystery of the worm.
Ben, you're not supposed to speak Latin out loud.
Oh, shit.
Now what's going to happen?
Ben just turned inside out for the listening audience.
Comes. Anyway, so it's heavily hinted at that it's this book from Jerusalem's Lot. They go through the house.
This is another great king description of a book. They are not a book, a king description of a door. They go to the cellar, and Susan describes. They open the door. The darkness as like a tongue licking out and hoping, and that as the sun sets, it will devour the room. And they're so entranced by looking into the darkness of the cellar that they don't realize that Straker has come back and comes at them from behind and knocks Mark out. So then we jump to Mark coming to, and Straker is like throws him on the floor because he realizes that he's conscious and hog ties him. And like he's gonna hang him from the ceiling and be like, "Hey, we're gonna Barlow's gonna eat Susan, and then one of them's gonna eat you. So you just hang out here. I have things to do," and then pieces out.
But Mark, while he's being tied up, has tensed all of his muscles.
He Houdinis himself.
Yeah.
because this kid is a gunslinger.
Yeah.
He is thinking, he thinks so fast, it's not even in images or words anymore. He just sees himself and knows what to do. And he escapes. He Houdinis himself out of these ropes and pulls off a metal bed leg and waits as footsteps come up the stairs.
And his relationship with the tall man at in the prologue is reminiscent of Roland and Jake. For me.
100%.
Oh, yeah. And then he bashes Straker's head in.
Just like Jake.
Just like Jake would. And just beats him over the head. And then Straker grabs him by the ankle when he goes to investigate. And then he doesn't say it. He alludes to the fact that he shatters all the bones in Straker's hand and then just drops it and goes, makes it down to the cellar, and it is too late. He stands at the top and he hears Susan scream and then go quiet. And then he hears the voice of Barlow commanding him to come downstairs. And everything in him is screaming, don't go, but his body starts going. And then, I'm not sure why this worked, but Mark screams down the corridor that he knows his name is Barlow, and that seems to break the temporary enchantment, and he makes it out. And then that night, Susan appears at his window.
There are lots more of us now. Ugh. We move on to finally Callahan and Matt get together and catch each other up. That's they have a discussion, and Callahan doesn't believe him. Essentially, he agrees to go with them to investigate, but he doesn't fully. He can't let himself fully believe and give the church involved.
And it's everything he's begging for, everything he needs to restore his faith, and he can't see it.
Which brings us to the final part of the book, part 3, The Deserted Village, the final confrontation, the final day.
Where they go through the town, injecting them with tetanus shots and giving them pills.
You read the wrong version of that book, CM.
It's October 5th. Ben has been in the lot for 1 month.
Oh, jeez.
And the next 100 or so pages takes place over 1 day.
It's so nuts. And at this point now, Mark has joined the team because he goes to Ben's and fills him in about what happened to Susan. They even go and he proves it by being like, here's her car. Gives him all the pieces. Then they go back, and now our team is assembled, minus Callahan, in the hospital room, and they lay out the kill plan. And Matt has done all this research that they have to stake the heart, decapitate it, stuff the mouth with garlic, then turn the head face down, and still maybe have to weight the coffin and throw it likely in a river. And they also need to go see Callahan because he's going to give them holy water, he's going to give them host, and Callahan has to hear their confession so that they have clean blood going into this. But here's a point that I am so confused about. This is also the point where they say that if they come across Susan, Ben has to kill her.
See, I think that's because Stephen King really likes Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It's 100% that. Because that's what happens in Dracula. And in the foreword of the edition that I have, he straight up says, Bram Stoker's Dracula is, one of the first books I read. It's one of his favorites, and a lot of this book is, just straight from Dracula.
Well, but the thing is, they ask, did you guys sleep together? Because if you did, you're going to have to do this. I don't know, why is that I don't get it. It bothered me. But also that Matt just gets to sleep through this. Fuck that guy. That old man.
He just had a heart attack.
He just days ago.
A day ago, 1 or 2 days ago.
Meanwhile, the town's dead.
Yeah.
It goes through a rundown of just vampires.
It's a laundry. It's basically another chunk of the entire town. Almost everybody we've met has now at this point been bitten or fully turned.
And in the meantime, Ben is going to spend all day making 14 wooden stakes.
So then we have the team goes to the church. They do their confession, which Ben didn't know how to do, so they had to walk him through it and walk him through the penance. And then they all jump in Jimmy's car and they head out, and they get to the house, and Callahan straight up smotes a front door. And I thought that was so cool. And then Callahan says, "This is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in my life." Because he just brought his cross down on the metal lock, and it turned into a melted pile of metal.
And this drives me insane, because from this point forward, why is there any problem at all? They all just witnessed an act of God.
Their faith should be rock solid.
100%. And from that point on, why is there any issue?
For Ben, there really is, as far as faith goes.
Very true.
Everybody else's faith besides. And I mean, their faith's pretty rock solid until it's called into question, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, so they're in the house, and they go upstairs. They find Straker hung upside down and bled dry, and it's already getting dark.
Then they go down to the basement, and they find a letter from Barlow that basically just taunts all of them. And
it's a real snotty letter.
Yeah, it's real shitty. And he taunts all of them, especially Callahan, and basically offhandedly just says, you can't kill me, but Ben, your lady's here. You might want to take care of that if you're here before sundown, which I assume you are.
And you made me kill my best friend, basically, because he disappointed me. Yeah. I was hungry. I didn't have a little boy to eat.
Which is why, Mark, I'm going to kill your family.
Yeah.
And chop your balls off.
Can
I just read off his taunts against Callahan?
Sure.
Are so cool, so terrifying, because he does make a point against Callahan. And I guess that answers the question I just asked.
That plants the seed of doubt.
Because he knows that Callahan is the most powerful against him. And he says, "My rights were old when the rights of your church were unconceived. I will best you." How you say? Does not Callahan bear the symbol of white? Yes, but I am not the serpent. I am the father of serpents. In the end, you will undo yourself.
Yeah, that was pretty
real
boss.
Big foreshadowing.
So they find Susan, and Ben cries his way through staking and then decapitating his love, which, I mean...
Hey, he killed his first wife, so...
After all is said and done, they head back to the hospital, because they then have to fill in Matt on being like, well, we did something.
Yeah, some shit went down.
But it's not what we thought. But they make a classic Dungeons & Dragons mistake. They split the party.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Cody and Ben went back to the hospital. Mark and Callahan went to Mark's parents. Matt, to his credit, manages to talk Cody and Ben from just running off into the night to go to Mark's, because they call and the phone line's dead, so they know something is coming. And he's like, he could do it without cutting the phone line. He did it so you'll go. So you need to stay here. Then we get back to Mark's.
Smash cut. The confrontation between Callahan and Barlow. It is in media res. Callahan is in the kitchen. Barlow has Mark by the neck. His parents are laying dead on the floor. And the cross in Callahan's hand is shining. And he is holding him at bay with the power of God, and he still manages to fuck it up.
But it fucks up in such the perfect way.
Yeah, and this part's tragic because Callahan's having a crisis of faith, and he finally comes face to face with the thing that he needs, that he's been begging for, that evil with a capital E, and it destroys him much quicker than the mundane everyday evils that have slowly been eroding his faith. And what happens next is not what I expected.
Yes.
Barlow basically makes the deal. He's like, look, I'll let the boy go if you throw that cross aside. And then it's faith on faith. Let's do this. And he's like, and Callahan is obviously like, no, I'm not gonna. You would, as soon as I throw this away, you would kill the boy. Let's Mark go. And then it's like, all right, your turn.
Yeah.
Because if you, and then
Barlow's faith in his dark powers is stronger than Callahan's faith in God.
Callahan, it's because Barlow puts Callahan in a position where Callahan makes the only logical assumption in his head, because I think anybody would be like, no, this is just a trick for you to make me throw away the cross, but is me not throwing the cross away showing that I don't have faith? And then the glow starts going down out. And Callahan starts panicking more, which is making him lose his faith more.
Barlow breaks that cross into pieces.
Just plucks it right out of his hand.
And then he makes Father Callahan drink his blood. Or, as Barlow puts it, take my communion. And this part's cool. And of course, by cool, I mean totally gross and creepy and cool. Barlow tells him, you would welcome the oblivion of my death now, I think. There is no memory for the undead, only the hunger and the need to serve the master. I could make use of you. I could send you among your friends. Yet, is there need of that? Without you to lead them, I think they are little. And he goes on to say, there is, perhaps, a more fitting punishment for you, false priest. He marks him.
It's so disgusting.
So fucking metal. Fuck, that's metal.
And that's when we lose Father Callahan. He removes himself from the situation because he is tainted. And then, so we've just got the rest of our ever-closing circle.
Yeah, we might as well finish out his story arc in the book because he only shows up twice more. He goes to the church, and when he touches the doorknob, it blasts him back and burns his hand because God has rejected him. And he takes a bus out of town. You
got to read the Dark Tower series if you want to know more about Father Callahan.
But he leaves town wearing a blue chambray shirt.
And as Stephen King's second book, this is not only a blue chambray shirt, but the first.
The blue chambray shirt.
The first. All right, so we go back. Mark has rejoined the group.
Now, they're back in the hospital, and there's a point that I need to bring up that maybe you guys can help me understand. They come up with their next plan. Tomorrow, they're going to make a bunch of stakes. They're going to find out where Barlow's hiding, and they're going to put an end to this. But Ben says the line that Matt is the most important of all of them.
Yeah,
why?
No, I agree.
Because he's doing all. They think that because he's doing all the research, like he's this hub of knowledge.
His research is over.
Yeah.
What more can he contribute to this group?
No, 100% Mark.
Well, he brought the group together, though.
I guess. And they see him as their Van Helsing.
Yeah.
I guess. But, Barlow, after seeing Barlow release Matt and tell Callahan, the boy makes 10 of you, false priest. You can't help but cheer for fucking Mark.
Yeah. Mark is the real MVP of this entire party.
So, also, Barlow sends a thrall to try and murder them. Ann Norton comes with a gun and then just gets taken out by some rando.
I feel like she would have done that without his influence.
Without coaxing. But it's also Mark who points it out to someone that she has a gun, even though they don't say it's Mark. We know it's Mark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get some more random around the town stuff of other people dying. And the important thing is that it's their time to start searching. They found that they had Mark try to remember any clues he could find, and he remembers there being blue chalk. And so they're like, they run down some options. So their best bet is he's at the closed school because there's a third and fourth story that are closed off. So blue chalk, maybe in an art class, whatever. That's where we're going. They start searching. They go to the furniture store first, find the box that was Barlow's original coffin.
With Mark Petrie in it. Or no, not Mark Petrie.
Mike Ryerson.
Mike Ryerson.
Sorry. And they just leave him. They're like, we'll come back for this. And they put the top back on and go. Like, all right, you got a lucky buy there, Mike. And they get back to Mark's because they're going to make all of these stakes. And Mark just can't go in. So Cody and Ben go in there and they have their own kind of little breakdown of how insanely taxing this is. Like Jimmy's like, you can do this today, but can you do this for the next month? Like, how long can we do this before we go insane? Which I thought was an incredibly valid point. Like, I mean, how long do you think you could be?
Couple hours, maybe hour tops.
Which is why you're both vampires.
Oh,
I am the only
Josh
one
is still
standing
going
against
strong.
us, against all of us falling to the thrall of darkness.
So they split the party again. Ben stays to make steaks.
Sorry, this is my in my notes. So they're talking about the process they have to do all of this stuff, and Jimmy and Mark are searching the houses. And I wrote in my notes, why do they need to stake all of them? Why can't they just like drag them all into the sunlight and move on? The very next page, they pull the McDougal family out into the light. They pull
Randy.
Yeah, Randy McDougal, the dad, out. Because they're like, who should we pull out? And Mark's like, not the baby. I disagree.
Yeah, that's
you
the
could just grab that baby by the leg and just flail it into the day.
Well, and it's so
in
creepy
hopes it would just
way.
explode, I think. Because a traditional vampire in the sunlight, it should just like just burst into flames. So that's what I would have gone baby first. That's just me. But I'm a gentleman. So they pull Randy McDougal out, and he just starts flailing all over.
But not like he's not like awake or conscious or aware of them. It's like an instinct. Yeah. He's like crawling back into the
it's
crawl
just
space.
So terrible to look at that they're like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're that's out of the question.
I was like, nope. Pull them all out, close that door. That's fine. Move on.
So the answer is we can handle this for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. The point is I'm a vampire killing machine.
While they're checking, Jimmy has a memory and knows where Barlow is.
I thought that connection was so cool.
Yes, because earlier in the book, I believe some character had mentioned that Eva has a pool table in her basement. And also, there was an earlier point where Eva went into her basement and there was this horrible smell. And you assume it's weasel.
Right.
But
it's not.
It's much worse. Jimmy realizes that it's Barlow in the basement. And this drove me insane. They go, let's go check it out.
See? Yeah, they make all these stupid decisions.
This is the dumbest idea. They're like, yeah, we'll go check it out. If he's there, then we'll go get Ben and the steaks that we need.
And what happens? Jimmy gets home alone.
He does.
He sure does.
Barlow, the original Wet Bandit. Wait, no. That'd make
the original Kevin McAllister.
Yeah, they go and the vampires have cut off the stairs to the cellar, and he falls onto a bunch of knives and dies just horribly.
And Mark has to drive his car back to his house.
Yeah,
he does a pretty good job.
Yeah, Mark goes, finds Ben. They're in a hurry. They're rushing now because fucking sundown is coming. And what do? He's like, Ben, what do we do now? And Ben's reaction is, well, we should go find Perkins.
Go find the fucking sheriff who's done nothing.
We'll go talk to Perkins.
Who doesn't give a crap?
No,
he's
doesn't
like,
give a shit.
I got it.
Sucks.
I'm not doing anything about this. You guys are on your own.
Yeah, he was like, oh, the vampires. Yeah, the vampires.
Yeah, go.
Peace out. And then they go to the church because they got to keep making stops.
Yeah,
before they go.
And to be fair, that comes in handy.
Yeah, it does. They wash their hands in the holy water and they put it on their face and they fill some more vials, and then they head back. They make their way down and they don't see anything, but they see this giant wardrobe, and they pull it down, and the door that they know behind that door is Barlow. And Ben tries to break the lock down and he can't do it. And he's like, we're all going to die because I can't break a fucking lock. Then he sees an axe and he pours holy water on the axe. And this is where I was like, shit is going nuts, because the axe starts to glow. And then I think it describes him as he is a moving column of blue fire. Because once they enter the darkness, their hands start to glow and their faces start to glow. So like you can tell it's all working. And he axes down the door, pushes through, and there's Barlow's crypt. But in between in between them is every member of the people who've been staying in Eva's house, all lying dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they go over to grab the casket, and it looks massive, and it looks like indestructible, basically, the impression they get from it. And they can lift it with just ease, like the power of good that is flowing through them.
Yeah.
Mark even says I could move it with one hand. And they bring it out into the other room.
I wrote Ben hulks out of his shirt.
Yeah, it does.
But he's a man possessed, and they describe this possession as not in the least Christian. It's more elemental, less refined. It is pure good.
Yeah.
Filling them. So they use this goodness to drag Barlow out into the cellar, and they open it up. They don't even open the lids. It just breaks open at their touch, and Barlow sits up.
Yeah, so they open it up, and Mark makes eye contact with Barlow, and he makes him leap at Ben to try to take the gun.
And Ben has to punch this child in the face. Just knock him unconscious.
Yeah, which makes him lose the power of God. Yeah. Punch the kid in the face twice.
Yeah.
God's like, whoa,
Okay,
hey
so,
now.
Josh, if you had thrown that baby out.
Oh, yeah, but they
you
washed
got
up
vampired.
afterward. Yeah. No, they washed up afterwards. I'd still be fine.
And yeah, there's this fight. He loses the power of the glow recedes, and you think he's in real trouble. And it's this fight, and you see Barlow sitting up, and then he just stakes him.
Yeah,
and dies.
stakes him, and he disintegrates. Basically, like he decays and falls apart. And then that is when sun sets. That the sunset has now happened. They've staked him. He's disintegrated. Mark has come to, and then all of the residents start pouring out. And there's basically like hey, we'll be back for you fuckers. And they but they can't touch them because they still have that divine protection. So they get out, and then they just leave. Mm-hmm. They just leave Salem's Lot. And Ben comes back the next day to bury Mark's parents and Jimmy, which was great.
And then they leave, and now we are back at the beginning of the book, at the prologue.
And this is why I the epilogue is my favorite part of the that makes that beginning part so worth it, because that part of me that was like, why did they leave? Like, they had a plan. Like, what were they waiting for? Then we find out really what they were waiting for, like the conditions they were waiting for to undo all of this. And they start referencing the great fire that happened and those conditions that it hadn't rained in so long. There was high winds, there all these things. And
they burn the town to the ground.
And they say, it'll burn and they'll run, but tomorrow, me and you. And that's the end of the book. So let's get to our final ratings.
I did not like this book.
Really? Not at all?
At the beginning.
Okay.
Like, as it started going on, like I said, it's, to me, it had Needful Things being my favorite book. This felt very much like Needful Things wouldn't be the great book it is if this book didn't exist, because this feels like the prototype for that book in my head. And so as I'm comparing those two, I had that standard that it didn't quite hit for me. But as the end of that book goes, the action is so awesome, and we've actually talked so much more about the things in this book than I ever thought we would have to talk about, because I didn't feel connected to it. But it's a really good story. Like, it's a great vampire story. There's lots of things to talk about and love about it, and we get Father Callahan, which is great in itself. But I don't think I would ever reread this book for any other reason than what we're doing now. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it a 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Fair. I feel a lot of the same ways. It's kind of a drag through the first part, but once it picks up, it is you can't put it down. For what it is, kind of an early King book, it really does feel like he's finding his feet. There are a lot of really amazing set pieces and some really excellent writing in the book, but I'm gonna have to give it probably 3.5 blue chambray shirts, because not quite there.
You guys probably don't know this about me, but I love anything vampire related. I would watch any vampire crap, even. I do not care. So to bring together vampires and Stephen King is amazing. It's not one of my favorites, like the way Misery hit me, or even The Dark Half, or some others that we're going to get to. But especially after having had a conversation this in depth that we've just had about it, it did elevate it more for me than I was initially going to rate it. So I'm going to give it 5 blue chambray shirts.
Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode, where we will be watching the entire 3-hour Salem's Lot miniseries. For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, I'm Joshua Kahn, reminding you that if a fear cannot be articulated, it can't be conquered.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thanks for listening to Salem's Lot Part 2. In a 1980s interview, Stephen King said that this book, of all his books, was his favorite. In his defense, Salem's Lot came out in 1975. We forgot to mention one very important part of this book. Early in the book, when Straker first walks into Larry Crockett's office, the book Crockett has been reading is called Satan's Sex Slaves. That's it. Nothing else is said about that book. I Googled it, and I can't find a book with that title. So I guess that's what I get for making that joke about this being King's favorite book. Touché, Mr. King. As always, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Derry Public Radio, or Twitter at Derry Public. You can also send questions to our email, derrypublicradio@gmail.com, and you can listen to us everywhere you listen to podcasts, including, for some reason, YouTube. And if you'd be so kind as to give us a 5-star review on iTunes, I'll stop making these terrible jokes at the end of the episodes. That's all for now. Goodbye, listeners.